want action, they want responsibility, and that's what we're here to do, and that's what this committee's charged to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentlelady yield to me. The gentlelady yield to me.
Certainly.
I thank the gentlelady. I want to comment on some of the discussion we've had in the last few minutes. The purpose of this markup, the subject matter of this markup, are subpoenas to deal with two very, very serious subjects. One is the child abuse and, frankly, negligent homicide going on at the border by this administration. And we have to get to the bottom of it, and that's why we want these subpoenas. And the other is the flagrant abuses of power, obstruction of justice, also by this president. And we have to get to the bottom of that, and that's the subject of the subpoenas before us. The question of the procedure at a hearing that we're going to hold is an important question, but it is not the subject of this markup. And although I've permitted people to talk about it and they can continue, I'm not going to add to the diversion of attention from the two crucial subjects that we have here, which is the child abuse and, as I said, negligent homicide and systematic torture of children.
Now we're stopping.
No, we're not stopping.
Yes,
I will finish my statement.
No, that
is going on.
Completely out of order. Bang it all you want. It's
It is
completely
not
out of order.
You are out of order. If you have an objection, you'll state it in a moment.
Well, I have.
Then I'll recognize you in a moment. But the subject of this hearing is the child abuse and other and abuse going on at the border, and the abuses of power by the president. Excuse me. The subject is the
point of
by
order.
Point of order. The gentleman will state his point of order.
I move to take the gentleman's words down.
Which words?
We'll take a timeout while we discuss it. You can't do this, and you can't who you've accused of crime, then you turn to administration.
I didn't accuse anybody.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. The words that I'm objecting to are the systematic use by the president to obstruct justice. You cannot use those words.
I will withdraw those words, and I'll say the systematic use of power by the president by the administration to defy the subpoenas of this committee and other committees. And I'll ask unanimous consent to withdraw the previous words. Without objection, they're withdrawn. To summarize, the purpose of this markup is to consider the child abuse and other terrible things happening at the border and the subjects that we discussed a moment ago by the administration, and to issue subpoenas to get to the bottom of both of them. And I'm not going to comment on anything that is beyond the scope of this markup. I yield back to the gentlelady.
Mr. Chairman, I totally agree with you, and I yield back my time.
The gentlelady yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Strike last word.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe House Democrats need to take a hint from the American people. The vast majority of the American people do not support this impeachment and drag that continues to fester up in the House Judiciary Committee. I would suggest that you need to move on issues that impact the lives of the American people, not your own politics and the affliction of your own Trump derangement syndrome. During the last Congress, it was all about the Mueller report. Didn't matter that committees in the House and Senate had found that there was no criminal conspiracy with Russia. We just had to keep calling the president an agent of a hostile foreign power while we waited for the Mueller report. Well, then we get the Mueller report. Mueller report concludes that there is no criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. Well, then it can't be about the written word of the Mueller report. Then we got to get Mr. Mueller here. He's got to be here. He's got to bring it to life with his words. So very well, we prepare. No Republicans objected to Mr. Mueller coming. He's on his way next week. But now we're here voting on these subpoenas because it still won't end with Mueller's testimony. Even if Mueller comes and answers your questions, you already know that you want to bring in these 12 additional witnesses regardless of what Mr. Mueller says. So it sort of begs the question, why are you bringing Mueller in the first place if this is never going to be over? And that's really the message to the American people. They're never going to get over this, okay? They couldn't deal with the fact that Donald Trump won the election when all the media pundits and all the Democrat talking heads said he had zero chance to win. Remember, he was supposed to lose 100 million to zero, according to the FBI lovebirds, but he wins. They can't deal with it, and so then they have to go delegitimize the presidency through all of these endeavors, and now we've got the dispositive proof. I don't think there are any Americans who truly believe there was a criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia who are not Democrat members of Congress. And so now we are in a circumstance where the only way to get them to not focus on this Trump-Russia stuff is to take them out of power. Because as long as they have the committee gavels, this is the deal, this is the show. There could be endless hearings, endless reports that the president wasn't engaged in a criminal conspiracy. I tend to think that the more productive endeavor is to figure out why in the heck the president was falsely accused for 2 years. How did we get to a point where political opposition research, dirt that was paid for by Democrats, polluted by Russians, shuttled into the senior levels of our government by deep state actors like Bruce and Nellie Orr, how did all of that function as a basis to divide us and distract us? The gentlelady who spoke earlier said, we're losing focus. Yeah, we're definitely losing focus. We should be focused on reducing prescription drug prices. We should be focused on the nearly 5,000 people who show up every day at the southern border that the Trump administration has been talking about. We should be focused on ways to limit burdens on Americans so that they can live the full potential of their lives. But they'll never get over it. There will never be an end for them. And that's what's truly sad, because we got 300 million plus Americans who are counting on us to be the people's house, to do the work that rises to the great virtue of the greatest country that has ever lived. And when I hear my colleagues talk about humanity and being humane, just think about the fact that it was your own whip, Mr. Clyburn, who laughed when asked about the humanitarian crisis that was building on the border. It's like you guys didn't even hear that. You just launched off into your talking points. I think I heard the distinguished gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Johnson, say that Republicans were using psychological operations on the Democrats in the committee. I guess he was referring to me. If when we feed you your own words back from your own leadership, if you consider that a psychological operation, I deeply apologize. We're merely trying to point out the inconsistency of the positions you've held in an effort to try to get you to work with us and to try to reform our asylum laws. And by the way, we'll do it with you in a bipartisan way. Your own colleague, Mr. Gonzalez from Texas, he's introduced a great bill to force people to seek asylum in their home countries. Instead of just sitting here and talking about the border and you guys cry harder or we cry harder or you laugh harder or whatever, that is not productive for anyone. But your own members have bills that would help us solve these problems, and you won't bring them up for a vote. And they're bills that have bipartisan co-sponsorship. So save us the lectures on humanity, because there is nothing humane about the fact that children in Central America are being stolen, rented, trafficked, and then sent right back across the border to do it all over again. That's what's inhumane. And that's what these asylum laws allow for. Children being used like a fast pass into this country. It's despicable, and you have the ability to bring bills forward to fix it, and you should do it. I yield back.